Sari, and welcome to Richard and Karl present Deep Space and Dragons. I'm Richard, the plant charred with more style.
I am Karl. Well, I mean, I don't really have any plants that are named after Karl, though.
What? None? There's a lot of plants.
Do you think there's any Karls named the Karl plants? I don't know. I mean, maybe one of your potted plants is named after me, but I don't think so.
No, let's see. Plants named after Karl.
It has to be with a K.
I'm aware. Apparently there is a Carlmagrosius ex Ocotoflora, which is a grass.
I mean, that's adequate. I could be a grass.
That's funny. But with that, before we deep dive into today's topic, what is new in the Karlverse, the actual main focus of our show?
Oh yeah, that's definitely the actual main focus.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, as our listeners are hopefully aware, it's somewhere around the holiday season. You guys may even be listening to this on Christmas for all we know.
I love cyclical.
I mean,
time.
I hope. But so I when I was younger, my dad he took a miniature deck of cards and he tacked them to a board, and we used this big old board to play a game called Sequence.
Okay.
And I don't remember how to play Sequence, but I do remember that we had these little plastic markers about the size of a discontinued Canadian penny.
Pennies.
And then
when the penny left circulation, they murdered Penny in the show Ruby. Coincidence? No.
So we would use these little plastic markers. The ones that we had were blue and orange. I hate orange, but that's another stare. That's another day.
Something. Weren't you glad it didn't say apple?
So we would use these little plastic markers to mark our moves on the board. And my parents called them tiddlywinks. And the whole point of that is to say that tiddlywink is the best word that I know to describe that the round plastic marker that's about the size and shape of a Canadian penny. So for better or for worse, one of my main hobbies is playing Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering has always apparently had I've seen a number of different types of counters.
Yes.
I don't think it'd even be possible for a single human to have memorized all of them and what they do. Some of them probably have only even been used once or twice. His name is
Byron, but please continue.
I mean, I know Byron has some neurological divergence, but do you think he could name all of the counters?
Probably.
Anyway,
I think that's funny because as he becomes internationally placed in puzzle contests, objectively one of the smartest humans I know, the counter thing may still break him. Please continue.
Well, okay, but so so these counters, basically. Most people, as far as I know,
I need to pause you for a moment. Because our Deep Space and Dragons is now performed in front of a live studio audience, we have the studio audience chiming in. They're called winks, and you tiddle them. That's why they're tiddlywinks. The more you know. Bing! You may resume.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's... but so, I mean, I happen to have a cup of 500 of these discontinued Canadian pennies. Which I got from Richard when him and his brother moved out and left a variety of gifts behind.
That is the most polite way you could have phrased that. Good job. Please continue.
Well, the 500 pennies have proven to be quite useful to use as counters, with the most common counter being 1/1 counters. But as Magic has progressed, the variety of counters have increased because it's now they have one counter for every evergreen keyword.
Yes.
Or there's the deck that just released that uses like you end up using like hundreds of time counters, and so the pennies, which unfortunately only have heads or tails
For now.
I mean, I guess you could theoretically stack your pennies on the third side, which they might fall over, but that's
Magnets. Please continue.
But the point is that these tittles, as chat has chimed
winks.
in,
They're the winks. You're the tittle.
Oh, they're the winks. You tittle the winks.
Yes.
Gotcha.
You're the tittle.
You're the tiddler. Tiddly. I mean, anyways.
The Tiddler is definitely an off-brand Batman villain. Don't Google it. Please continue.
But so for Christmas, we do a Secret Santa between my family because there's 5 kids and 2 parents.
For those aren't aware, Christmas is a holiday often celebrated in December. See, that's the level of talk down you did when you explained the Rubik's Cube. Please continue.
As a side note, today I gave someone a free Rubik's Cube at work.
Nice.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome! I've been practicing these at home." I was like, "Wow, really?" I just kind of assumed that they might have been too old and had fallen out of public consciousness, but apparently not.
Yeah. Apparently, the Rubik's Cube is making a comeback.
But so for Secret Santa, I requested juggling balls, tiddlywinks, coin cases for my silver quarters because I have a bunch of silver quarters, and then if they wanted to be lame, they could buy me a Home Depot gift card.
You really are one singular chemical bath away from being a Batman villain. Please continue.
So my brother, juggling balls, definitely understood the assignment. Tiddlywinks, however, I was expecting just like bulk winks, as I got that right this time, I think.
I
just
honestly don't know.
Just like,
Jack could just be gaslighting us for all we know.
But I thought I was just going to get like 1,000 of these small plastic counters or markers or whatever. But it turns out you can actually just buy Tiddlywinks the game on Amazon, and it's kind of nostalgia bait because it's designed after like the 50s color scheme and art style and whatnot. And like it comes with 4 big ones, one of each color: red, green, blue, and yellow. And then each color has 4 small ones, so that you get a total of 20 pieces. Mm-hmm. It's just that I didn't realize that people use Tiddlywinks in the same sense as someone might use like a Kleenex Scotch tape or like Advil, like
brandification. Kind of like someone who is good at marketing, for example, may call their messaging feature a tweet. And then when the world says that I tweeted that, you've won. It'd only be pure hubris to change it back after you've got that kind of company brand association that marketers spend their entire lives trying to perfect. Just hypothetically.
But I mean, the story's not really going anywhere because the whole point is that I did not get, my brother understood the assignment, and he actually did end up getting me exactly what I asked for when I asked for Tiddlywinks, because you can. Okay, now I'm not sure if I got this backwards or not, but you
can do this.
You wink them or you tiddle them? I don't know.
Tiddle them. You were so close. It's like
so you tiddle the winks.
You're basically Plus and Minuet, right? Like so close to being a good idea. So close.
Oh, Ampharos with his reroll ability of plus still isn't doubles battle with the Minuet. Is just,
you know what they should have done? They should have given Wooloo minus, so your 2 sheep had synergy. Like plus and minus, they just didn't go outside the box enough. Like they could have given a hidden ability plus to Electabuzz and minus to Magmar, and just gave random duos plus and minus.
That would have been sick. But now I have this actual like box that has like a little like target, when I looked up online, apparently traditionally it's played where you just try and get the winks into the cups.
Yes.
Into a cup, and whoever has the most
Kind of
winks
like
in the
beer
cup at the
pong,
end
but
wins.
with a better beverage. Because air is a better beverage than beer.
I would agree. But now, I unfortunately, I have this set of tiddlywinks, and I don't really want to like separate them and use them for tokens or counters, and
Because they're now
mostly
a
because
complete
there's not
game.
really. Yeah, well, and there just aren't enough of them because it's only 20. Like I said, I was kind of expecting like 1,000.
So, when I was playing around with dice templates today, because I'm a cool person with cool interests, for Flesh and Blood cards, they actually make various dice tokens where each side of the dice is a different token. Like, the plus ones are like -1, -2, -3, and then +1, +2, +3. So maybe part of your token solution is you take like 6-sided dice and make each side a different kind of token.
I mean, I suppose like that would be pretty smart.
But please, was this going somewhere? Because Karl's stories are fascinating. Because it's equally likely you're just talking tiddlywinks because it's cool, or you're going to talk about how a truck fell over full of tiddlywinks and then exploded.
No. I mean, this story's not really going anywhere because, unfortunately, tiddlywinks don't quite have the staying power that they did in the 50s when video games didn't exist.
I wonder how ambiguous your age is. Because that sentence implies that you're a far older creature than people initially assume. Because they're like, oh yeah, they're talking Gen 5 hidden abilities in Pokemon. Yeah, it doesn't have the staying power it did in the 50s. And then, like, as they're trying to math out the Karl age on the chart, you just threw them a variable that just broke their equation completely. It's like, yeah, back in season 1 of Doctor Who. Wait, what?
So it's like I have this box of tiddlywinks, and it has like a little target and everything, but I don't really have anyone to play with because I don't think I know anyone who has the attention span for such a simplistic game.
I mean, you're missing the most obvious place to play that game. You bring it into the office, and then when people are on break, they have more attention span than ever, provided you give people breaks.
Right. We do.
Indeed. So.
But so I mean that's really what's new with me. But maybe you would like to give me a hyper accurate prediction of how you're going to spend New Year's Eve.
That's funny. That's funny for so many reasons. So many reasons. So, in an ideal world, we would do a tabletop RPG meetup, right? We'd get together to play, because we have our club members, we'll get together to play a series of board games. Perhaps we played Unstable Unicorns, a game that causes friendships to die, hatred to build, because you don't have any friends anymore. The unicorns are your friends now. Perhaps after that, we'll play some rounds of Exploding Kittens. And perhaps instead of ordering takeout, we'll go to M&M shops and each pitch in $20 and just throw party platter type things in the oven all night long. Then we may go to an overpass near Celebration Square and watch a series of fireworks explode in the sky, followed up by hot cocoa stirred with candy canes and a good night's sleep. Maybe that's how I would spend New Year's hypothetically.
Well, I guess only the future will tell.
It would be pretty optimal, to be honest.
That does sound like a much better way to spend New Year's Eve than I'm going to, because like I'm going to be working while my girlfriend and my sister stay at home and watch chick flicks.
Because I will say, in the hypothetical where we had both booked off New Year's, pretty much it'd be our optimal New Year's, but I brought in other people because it takes 4 civilians to match 1 Karl. But I did pull the Apocalypse expansion out of Unstable Unicorns hypothetically in the future, because that is the one with the infinite loop, so now that we know the rules, that the reset card gets pulled out and possibly thrown on a fire. And also, Exploding Kittens is such a mindless but entertaining game. I did not win Exploding Kittens. I got destroyed. And then a couple days before New Year's, I did some miniature painting, and it was great.
That does sound pretty great.
Yeah. And then I watched the series finale of Archer.
The series finale? Archer's over?
Yeah, it ended with an hour-long movie.
Ah.
I am content with it. As much as we could easily do a full episode on Archer and involve you catching up on Archer. Which really isn't in my top 5 things I would tell you to watch. I think in number 1 would be the new Scott Pilgrim adaptation. That'd probably be in first place.
Right, because they just took the source material and threw it in the trash. Well, not necessarily in the trash, but...
No, they put it lovingly on the mantle and went, we can do better. Which is the opposite of the Boruto approach. The exact opposite of Boruto is to look at what you had before and think, I can up my game and do something better.
Yeah, but you're not do Boruto. You look at what you did before and you're like, yeah, I should lower the bar.
Right? So what if the cool fights happen off screen? Or, World Trigger, what if there were no fights? I swear, Jujutsu Kaisen's so popular right now, our friend Sorcerer fight, because everything else is just lowering the bars constantly. Hey, do you want to read Dragon Ball Super for a year where we just cover a movie? The bar's so low it's on the ground, but I've been informed that lifting a heavy bar is actually harder off the ground than if it's at chest level, so...
Huh. So they dropped the bar and now they can't pick it back up.
Yeah, because they can't get good leverage on the bar because it's fallen so low. They'll end up popping a disc in their spine, the bar's so low.
Well, speaking of low bars, we were going to go through a list of...
Yeah, so to give some context, there's a literary magazine called Strange Horizons that does science fiction posts and fantasy posts. And... shout out to Strange Horizons, but we're going over specifically is they receive a lot of stories. And they receive so many of them that they created a list of the type of stories that they've specifically seen too often. And what I thought would be fun would be to go through this list of things they've seen too often and see if we can come up with examples of if we've seen it and if it was good. Because even though they don't want to see this, it doesn't mean these stories don't have potential, or they do have potential. But either way, let us begin.
Okay, sorry. Did you send me that list over Discord or over phone, texting?
I am going to,
I'm apparently
for the sake
one
of
of
convenience, put the list in front of your face again in our Richard and Karl private podcast server, protected by our usual unhackable password solutions.
Haha, here we go. All right.
So, bad story idea 1. And if you can come up with a good story idea pitch in response to the bad story idea, I am happy to see where this conversation takes us.
Okay.
Story 1. Person is, metaphorically at point, or literally, at point A, and they want to be at point B. They look at point B and say, I want to be at point B. Walks to point B, encountering no meaningful obstacles or difficulties. The end. AKA the linear plot. What comes to mind when you hear that? They're at point A, they want to be at point B, they go to point B. The end. Because The Last Jedi did that a couple times. Remember the part where they need the dagger? So they go to the desert and they fall and find the dagger. And then they bring the dagger to the Death Star, and then they line up and it lines up to the Death Star. Then they climb the Death Star, and then they find this MacGuffin that'll lead to the next MacGuffin. So I'm going to say The Last Jedi is bad for that. Sorry, Rise of Skywalker specifically.
Yeah, that's true. Was that? Yeah, Rise of Skywalker.
Last Jedi had the one where they went on the casino side quest for literally no purpose. But does this pitch resonate any stories to you in mind? Where a character just kind of goes up and does the thing.
Well, okay, so, I recently, I watched Good Burger, because there's a Good Burger 2.
I don't even know what to do with that information.
Good Burger 2 is not as good as Good Burger 1. But, part of that is, the main character, Ed, doesn't really encounter any meaningful obstacles. And then when he's presented with a programming challenge, he just like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. It's like, really? You just pulled that out of nowhere and had no meaningful obstacles to overcome when trying to reprogram all these robots that are taking over their jobs?
I don't want to throw Fast and the Furious as a franchise under the bus, but very often they just do the thing because it's cool. Because the Hollywood equivalency is just do the thing. You know what movie actually had a full 15 minutes dedicated to this exact problem? Avengers Endgame, where he needs to solve time travel, and then does.
Yeah, that's a good
just
point.
Wash the dishes and then new time travel.
Well,
but my follow-up is, do you think you can make a good story about a character at point A who wants to be at point B, looks at point B, and then goes to point B?
I do think it's possible, because like it's more so about the journey and the description of the journey. So it's like, you know, people he meets and the interesting points of view. Like, say, like Huckleberry Finn. Largely, he does not encounter any problems on his way. I mean, he's not really going anywhere in particular.
Yeah, now his biggest problem is book burnings.
But yeah, Huckleberry Finn, it was all about the journey. It's like, oh yeah, I'm here. I need to take my friend down to where there's no slavery. So let's just get on our raft and go.
You know what's kind of funny is this was my exact problem with Pokemon Black and White, where I was walking around the circular map and I just feel like, yeah, I can see exactly the route. And a lot of the newer Pokemon games have that problem where it's like obvious where you're supposed to go next, to the point of mind-numbing, where it's like, oh yeah, I followed the linear train track. All right, on to topic 2. Number 2, a creative person has trouble creating. Either A, has writer's block, B, a painter can't paint anything good, C, a sculptor can't sculpt anything good, D, a creative person's work is reviled by critics who don't understand how brilliant it is, or E, a creative person meets a muse, who's literally a classical muse or a more individual muse, interacts with them, usually by keeping them captive.
Well, okay, so point E is just Misery by Stephen King.
Yeah.
And Misery was a great book, but trying to emulate someone else usually doesn't pan out well.
Statistically, they're probably too sober to emulate Stephen King anyway.
But there's two things that I think about with this category in particular are from Shonen Jump. The first one being Ghost Paradox Writer.
Nice.
Which is another great example of how to actually make this work. Because he has writer's block, and then he gets his inspiration from a ghost.
That one was so good, though,
from the
because,
future?
like, a lot of it is him going through the guilt cycle of what he has done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd say, like, the meta thing is that one's almost more about plagiarism, but also does hit that bullet point to a T.
And then the other thing is beat and motion. It's like, so far there's 3 separate characters who have just kind of been like, yeah, I feel like I have creative blocks for like making music or for making film or whatever, and then it's, you know, the story of them trying to figure out what their passion is and how they should ignite it to create beautiful content.
See, what's funny though is I think I know why this magazine specifically has this problem. So I deal with a lot of writers being in a writer program. And a lot of writers, their focus groups are writers, and they find themselves writing for writers without realizing it. So I see that a lot of people probably be like, project their writer's block onto the story and put it in. And then their feedback group of writers will be like, yeah, writers writing about writer block. Like, I'm probably more likely to write about writer's block than you are, even though I've never experienced it due to 10 years working in food service. So people ask me why I don't have writer's block. It's because I'm never listening to a person. My brain is never there. It's thinking about something more fun. So, as a general rule, thanks to the power of my disability blocking me from writing things down, I always have something I've daydreamed about, while not putting Crispits on the pizza, that I can put into a book later. Sure, a lot of it could be derivative and highly inspired by things. Cough, Mega Man X, and my latest RPG project have a few overlaps, cough. But I see the logic of like why you'd write the block story. A lot of the really good ones you put up, though, they use that as like almost the stronger ones are when 2 people have that problem and they muse each other, because that makes a beautiful romance plot. Where it's like, I find a lot of romance falls flat if one character is just like worshipping the other mindlessly. But when they like have like a good balance, it can pull you in.
Well, yeah, Beat in Motion definitely is a recommended story where neither Richard nor I thought that it was going to last very long or that it was going to be a good read. But so far, it's actually been quite good.
Oh, another one. What was it? The Chainsaw Man one. Eerie, I think. Finding Eerie?
The Goodbye, Airy?
Goodbye, Eerie. That was it. Is a similar concept. You know what actually my first thought was for number 2, though? Which is a weird take. Mm-hmm. I think Saitama had Hero's Block. Hero has Hero's Block was actually the plot of One Punch Man. Like, I kid you not, he's like, I want a hero. Hero's supposed to make me happy, but I'm just not getting any joy out of heroing. Is actually writer's block, but you're a hero suffering from it.
Hero's block. That is pretty funny.
And if you extend that definition, then there's like a whole genre of person with X skill has blockage from X skill, stopping them from using their talent in X skill until they come over X psychological block. And that's the only way people can write overpowered characters, is that they have a block in some aspect of their life. Or else you don't have a story there, right?
Fair enough.
Okay, I think it's time to move along to number 3. Visitor to alien planet ignores information about local rules, inadvertently violates them, and is punished. I.e., new diplomat arrives on alien planet, ignores anthropologist attempts to explain local rules, is punished. First off, that is the entire plot of Futurama. In its entirety. Like, the most iconic Futurama example is the sign that says, "Don't drink the Emperor," and he ignores it and drinks the Emperor and becomes the Emperor. Could not be a more obvious example.
I'm having trouble thinking about specific examples because
Avatar.
it's just... Yeah, I mean, Avatar is a pretty good example. Although, I mean, he doesn't exactly get
spirit rocks.
He doesn't exactly get punished per se, at least not by the locals. He more so gets punished by
mankind as a whole does this. Because mankind as a whole ignores that it's their sacred land, steals the rocks from the sacred land, and then tank elephants trample them to death, and then shoot them with their tank face.
Tank elephants.
Also kind of the plot of Digimon, weirdly enough. Usually there's like your Digimon partner be like, "Don't eat the meat fruit," and then they eat the meat fruit.
Huh. Interesting.
Do you have any thoughts on that one?
On Digimon?
Well, yeah, but always. I could easily sidetrack any episode to just talk Digimon. Like, I was looking up Digimon PS1 mod packs to see if anyone's fixed the bugs in it earlier today. But no, the visitor to alien planet ignores their tour guide. And it could be definitely like Fantasy World as well.
Planet 51, I think, was what it was called. I think it's a DreamWorks movie. About an astronaut that lands on an alien planet, and then the aliens are trying to hide him because he's unfamiliar with all the rules and stuff. And I don't know. I think that one was just kind of generic. I mean, it was a good enough kids movie, I guess.
But it's definitely a very... It's almost like a Pixar-y Disney trope. Like, my brain literally went like, Pocahontas is pretty close to this. As is The Little Mermaid. Alright, ready to move on to number 4. Funny. Weird thing happens, but it turns out they're not real by one of the following scenarios. It was all a dream. It was all virtual reality. The protagonist is insane. The protagonist is writing a novel, and the events we've seen are part of the novel. First thing that comes to mind isn't any of these, but it angered me so much. The solution was my future daughter.
Oh, Kaido, the right answer.
Any of those would have somehow been better. So these are like famously bad tropes. Can you think of a good example of any of these?
Well, I mean, it makes me think of Inception, but the whole point of Inception is that you pretty much know straight from the beginning that everything is a dream. I mean, at the end, you don't really know truly whether or not it was a dream in the first place.
Yeah, but it's like the point was it wasn't supposed to matter because he got his kids back and is happy.
But I mean, I think that's pretty much as close as you can get to that kind of twist ending where it turns out everything was fake.
So, like, I've seen in a microcosm it can work. As a story, no. But, like, when Kabuto was stuck in the time loop and when it clicked in that he was stuck in dream sequence. That was actually kind of great.
Kabuto stuck in a loop.
Like, the protagonist is insane is not a particularly good one. And
No.
the protagonist is writing a novel is the worst. However,
What?
one time the protagonist is writing a novel kind of worked, and that was how they ended Kenichi, remember? Because he, like, straight up's like, this sounds ridiculous, but this is how it happened.
Yeah, that's true. And then it implies that he did in fact become a master.
It also implies that a lot of the ridiculous things in Kenichi may have been embellished by Kenichi. So, a person may not have Hadokened a tank.
A person may not have punched a nuke.
And maybe not everyone's clothes exploded. He might have just been a pervert and needed to sell it to a certain market.
Maybe.
But, like, I don't mind that as a, like, this story was ridiculous. I wrote it. But I think that's the only example I can think of where they were really, like, the protagonist was writing a novel. But
well, I mean, again, like you say, that's probably more so a problem for this magazine because these writers are writing to writers without realizing it.
Not just that, but also they have a much smaller word count, right? So you only get about 3,000 words, or like a chapter worth. So if you end a 3,000 word story with the protagonist is writing a novel, you can get away with that around chapter 600 because then it's actually a novel.
Right.
And I kind of, it's like the protagonist was insane. Harley Quinn kind of did that, like she would literally see butterflies and things in her scenes, and like Deadpool kind of does that too. Like he's an unreliable narrator, but not quite that brazenly. Number 5. I love this wording. An AI gets loose on the net, but the author doesn't have a clear example of what it means for software to be loose on the net. For example, the computer it was on may or may not be connected to the net. I know it's not related, but the one scene from, I think it was one of the Law and Orders, where 2 people were typing on one keyboard to fight a hacker, just the universe needs to be aware that happened.
I was going to think like the original Tron. That's kind of in that vein.
Yeah.
Ready Player One. Ready Player One was another pretty bad example.
So I need a rant about this. Okay, listen. So in the original novel, they didn't do this. But in Ready Player One, they're like, no one found this Easter egg because no one drew backwards. I do it. I figured this out in games because it was in Diddy Kong Racing. I am so mad that the writer that they're using for the cinematic masterpiece did not occur to them that a gamer would think to go backwards at this. Every game I've ever played, the first thing I do is see if the screen scrolls left for a secret. I'm not good. I am average at best.
Oh yeah, I mean, like that's such a like common video game trope. It kind of seems like the writers of the movie had not actually played a video game.
And there's a few moments where it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, I put on a suit so I could get injured while I was thing. Or like, why don't you just exit the game? Like, they just don't know how games work. And Free Guy was another one that got by entirely on Deadpool's charisma. But it's just like, they specifically say in the movie, there's no game button to kiss somebody. And then a person pushes a game button to kiss somebody. Like, they made the rule. Or the entire Reborn in another world that has game logic even though it wouldn't function as a game. Like Sword Art. Sword Art is unplayable as written. It doesn't function as written. They showed us the stat screen. It doesn't work.
Well, so I mean, we've kind of lost the whole AI is loose on the net, but like
instead we got people write a story about video games who've never played a video game. But
it's the spirit of the story for sure. I can definitely see why they would be annoyed by this because it's like you should be familiar with the type of content that you're writing.
Right? But like loose on the net. So there's a few I've seen that did that. There was that one, I don't remember what it was called, but like I know it ended with them being in one of those like electric free zones where a person puts a bunch of electrodes into his head and just uploads his consciousness to the net. That's it. That's the entire concept.
Okay.
It's like, that doesn't work because that's not how the internet works. You don't just get to upload a brain to the internet. So I think any movie that's done that is just kind of wrong. Like, an AI going evil, ChatGPT turned into a Nazi in 7 minutes. But you need to, like, it doesn't go loose on the net.
So, upload on Amazon Prime. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon Prime. Um, they upload brains into digital afterlife. But I mean, I've never watched the second season because the first season pissed me off too much. Because it's like the whole point is that they're trying to then re-download people's brains into real bodies so that they can come back to life or whatever. But the main character, he gets this magic digital screwdriver, which allows him to somehow just hack into anything he wants in the real world. And he uses this digital screwdriver to straight up murder someone with an elevator.
So, like, I was going to loop into that. The most common example is something will get onto the internet and then fire all the nukes. Those run on floppy disks a guy has to get up and insert. You just can't hack that. It physically doesn't work. You need a Betamax player to even try. So when you hear, like, Ultron exists as a consciousness on the net and hacked all the nukes, like, no, he did not. Or it's like it hacked the gas grid. It's like possible. Those use actual valves. Like someone has to go and turn it. Or like in Ghost in the Shell, where they have a better idea of the concept, where an AI got loose on the net. This is a world where everyone's actually has brain to network interfaces set up. So it's like, yeah, no, if your world is sci-fi enough, it works.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mega Man Battle Network, weirdly, where your oven was Wi-Fi enabled and the little chibi viruses took over the oven to set it on fire. That works if you have a smart oven to be hacked.
Right.
Why anyone needs a smart oven is beyond me, but
most technologies, even currently, not quite there yet, where an AI would be able to get loose and just wreak havoc on everything.
Weirdly enough, Reboot had a better idea of how the internet works. Like, they literally needed the user to set up a portal so he could leave to go to it, and he was able to sneak through by going through a crashed game launcher. That's actually how that works. Like a virus sneaking in because you connected Halo and you downloaded a file and it crashed? Yeah, no.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Number 6. Technology or modern life turns out to be soulless. 5 flavors. A. Office life turns out to be soul deadening, literally or metaphorically. B. All technology is shown to be soulless. In contrast, anything natural is good and artificial is bad. C. The future is utopian and is considered by many to be perfect, but perfection is boring and stagnant. D. In the future, all learning is soulless and electronic until some kid is exposed to ancient wisdom in the form of a book. And E. In the future, everything is soulless and electronic until protagonist, usually a kid, is exposed to ancient wisdom in the form of an old wise person who lived in a non-electronic life. Gee, I wonder why writers talk about this topic.
The only one that actually really resonates with me, and this is actually a decent example, C, the future is dystopian and considered by many to be perfect. The Giver was a great book. Well, I mean, I enjoyed it when I was younger, anyways, because it's the world has no color, and so for most of the book, they just don't use any color descriptors. But then the main character meets the Giver, and the Giver teaches the main character about color, and he realizes how bland and uninteresting this supposedly perfect world is because of the lack of color.
Makes sense. Like, that's a good one. What's interesting, like, office life turns out to be soul deadening, literally or metaphorically. Yeah, sure. First off, anyone who writes that story has never worked a non-office job. Because I talk to my colleagues who work office jobs, right? And they'll be like, oh, I can't play fantasy games after work because my office job's so hard. I'm like, you've never worked a real job, have you? Like, sure, you might have worked at a coffee shop, but your life didn't depend on it. You didn't have to do it. Because, as a general rule, if your job as a chair is already a step up from some of these entry-level meat grinder work, like when people are like, they were lazy, they work 4 jobs, I'm like, that feels impossible. So, like, oh, I'm so dead inside because office life is so boring. It's like, then liven it up. Do literally anything. Ask your coworkers if they'd like to be friends. So that one just drives me nuts because I've seen, like, people complain about it, and it doesn't surprise me for those complaints to be a 3,000-word short story.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's often used as the starting point of a story. So, as if the entire story is office life is soulless and you need to be in a Hallmark movie, for the record, every Hallmark movie, all of them, is office job person goes and relearns Christmas. Is literally like number 6 is how you write a Hallmark movie, is you just do one of these things. Like, in the future, in like 10 years' time, there will be a large number of Hallmark movies where it's like, phone-addicted CEO gets told to put away electronics by old man who likes Christmas and then meets love of his life. Like, it just feels obvious.
Yeah, I again, a lot of these examples, I feel like I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but again, this magazine probably has gotten a lot of these kinds of submissions just because of the nature of the type of magazine it is.
Well, what's funny is, when we were talking about this list in class, it came up that the idea for a list like this isn't to make sure you never do these things, but to be informed you're following a trope, and if you can defend it, you can stay in, but if you can't defend it, it can't. Like, if you did number 5 and AI got loose in the net, but you don't know what it means, that's telling you not to change your story, but to explain what that means, right? Or if it's like, your entire story is office life is soul deadening, that means you should probably beef that up a bit.
Well, yeah, again, like, these are short stories, so the office life, you have such a small amount to actually describe the office life that I can see why they would not have liked that kind of story, because it just eats up too much of their word count.
I will say, though, for number E, I am shocked that no one's made this show and jump story. I'm going to turn E into a pitch of a good story.
Okay.
Or in the future, cybernetics, robotics, punch clocks, soulless and electronic, until Edge Maverick finds an old wizard's tome in the basement and decides that the corrupt robot authority needs to take him down. He is the cyber wizard, and he's dressed like a cliche wizard. Wait, was that? Wait, never mind. That was Eden Zero. That happened already.
Eden Zero?
Yeah, the fairy tale guys next series after that, right? They went to the theme park, and there's like the robots, and then it thought they're setting up another fairy tale, and then it turned out to be a story in space.
I did enjoy that one.
Right? Like, that one feels good if you go somewhere with it. Because if the ancient wisdom just one old person says that computers are bad, that's boring. If they go somewhere with it, it's good.
Right.
Alright, 7. The protagonist is a bad person. We don't object to this in a story, we merely object to it being the main part of the plot. It comes in 3 flavors. A. Bad person is told they'll get a reward they deserve, which ends up being something bad. B. Terrorists discover that horrible things happen to them in the afterlife, often written as Osama bin Laden. C. Protagonist is portrayed as really awful, but that betrayal is merely a setup for the ending, which is to see the error of their ways and are redeemed. But reading about the awfulness is so awful that we never get to see the redemption. So, for A, the idea that bad person is bad, and they'll get a reward that they deserve, and then bad thing happens to them. I am so sick of bad person is reborn as a manga. You know how fast I drop that? If it's just, I'm a bad person, but I get to try again to get my revenge. I hate that. I hate it so much. I despise the idea that people were mean to me, so I'm going to restart. Because, like, the whole, like, redo-over thing is, like, the sub-genre of Ikigai I see a lot of, I'm a terrible person, but I get a do-over, and I'll use this do-over to get revenge. It's like, oh, shut up. Just shut up. So I agree that your protagonist is being an asshole is often bad. And then if your story is protagonist is an asshole and gets put in some kind of murder game to suffer as part of their afterlife. I don't know if I've seen that specifically, but I feel like I've seen hints of that.
Oh, well, I mean, Squid Games is pretty much exactly that, where everyone in there is an asshole in some way.
Yeah, and I didn't really vibe with Squid Game.
Yeah. It was an alright show.
Like, I think I would have liked it more if I had more to root for.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really end up feeling like that much of a twist that everyone in there was actually, bad.
See, what's really funny is Death Note is C. Protagonist portrays really awful, but that betrayal is made a setup for the ending, which is to see the error of their ways and are redeemed. Except he didn't. He just kind of got shot. And then his name got written in, and he's like, yeah, no, you're dead. Screw you. So I don't know if Death Note really had a point.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's pretty fair. I mean, Death Note is kind of a good example of point C, but at the same time, like the whole point was not that he was going to get redemption. Like,
well, it's interesting.
So it kind of circumvents the trope in that way.
So it does actually do all three, where they're trying to create the world they deserve, and I believe the line's even said by Ryuk is, "But if you kill all the bad people, aren't you the last bad person left?" He's like, "What? I'm a model student. It'll be fine." And then literally at the end, it's like, "Yeah, you're the last bad person left. Sucks to be you." And I think we learn he becomes a Shinigami who suffers in the afterlife. I think it's implied. But they definitely get their comeuppance in other ways, like being shot by... Yeah. So, Death Note is weird, because I really liked the first half, but I didn't love the second half. And I'm still mad at the spin-off where the character wasn't a bad person, and then they cheated. The Shinigami cheated. Any thoughts on this point before we truck along?
No, not really.
Completely unrelated. Code Geass subverts this so well. Because Lelouch is telling everyone he's a bad person, but then, like, the plot point is Lelouch is full of crap. He's not actually that good at being a bad person. And then his afterlife is he just kind of gets to, like, live on and be a farmer somewhere. Like, it's just funny because, like, he gets... All of this happens, and then it was just a con he pulled to kill that identity and just mess off to another world. Good job. 10 out of 10. Number 8. A place is described with no plot or characters.
I really feel like that's a problem with the short story, where they just have an idea and submit it as a short story. But
well, let's like expand upon this a bit. So, what is a story you can think of that was mostly world building, but they forgot a plot or characters? Because you know what I'm thinking right now. You know, I'm thinking
What's
really
that?
Strongly. I'm thinking
World Trigger
became this. They're constantly describing how border works, how the neighborhood works, how the organization works. But the plot stopped. And the characters started being plot devices to talk about politics. There's no characters there, because if you could replace a character with another character and no one could tell the difference, you forgot to write a character. So I think World Trigger was bad for this. My hero was definitely more focused in designing the world for a while than actually, like, the plot or the characters. Like, it's like you had a bunch of cool...
Right.
Actually, Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan was more about the place than the characters and the plot for a lot of it.
Well, I mean, I never really got into Attack on Titan, mostly because I don't watch that much anime, and the original manga was... The art style just wasn't for me.
Well, that's fair. So, I'm rephrasing number 8 to be like, when they care way more about the setting than the plot or the characters. And I've definitely seen series do that one. Bright was another one. You remember that terrible Will Smith movie with the orcs?
Yeah, okay.
Alright, so number 9. A surprise twist ending occurs. Note, we like endings we didn't expect as long as they derive naturally from the character's action. But note, we've seen a lot of twist endings that are either really predictable or do not match the story. And it comes in 7 flavors, and I'll try and abridge it. Character actions are designed to fool the reader into thinking they're humans, but it turns out they're not humans. Any thoughts on that one? Or the plot twist is they weren't humans?
Well, or the plot twist is that they weren't humans. Trigun?
I'll allow it.
But I mean, it's because he's not a human. There's Westworld. Westworld is pretty interesting because a lot of the AIs or a lot of the characters is like they're so convincing that they think they're human, and then throughout the series you learn that's like you don't know who's human and who's not.
All right.
But that's not really about the twist ending.
All right, number 2. Creatures are described as vermins or pests or monsters, but it turns out they're human. So they played this as a joke in Futurama one time where it's like, I took the DNA of the most evil animals I could find. It turns out the creation is man. That was the joke. I don't know if I could think of any examples from like TV, movies, and anime, because it's like writing is what lets you get away with the fact that the vermin or pests or monsters turned out to be humans.
Yeah, that's definitely it's about the descriptors, and when you actually have a visual media, then it's
Although
it's
Attack
hard
on
to
Titan
hide
did
the
do
fact
that,
it's
where it
human.
turned out the Titans were people that were turned into Titans. They just kind of straight up did that. C. The author conceals an essential piece of information from the reader that'd be obvious if the reader were present at the scene and then reveals that information at the end. The Knives Out reversed, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, Knives Out was a great movie.
It was.
I don't really have any good examples.
Yeah, neither do I, but I see the logic where it's like, this gun was the solution all along, and they just didn't tell you there was a gun there. Actually, I think my thought goes to, like, Ichigo's parents, where it's like, Ichigo was a Quincy all along. It's like you didn't show us that at the start at all. His mom was a Quincy. Yeah, but you didn't show us that. So, hey, we could have probably figured that out if you literally had any indication that you were planning to do this from the start. You know, Goku is a Saiyan, too. Where it's like, twist! Goku's a Saiyan! You didn't have that at the start. Ooh, D. The person is floating in a formless void. In the end, they're born.
I mean, I've actually never seen that story, but like,
I feel like that's how 2001: A Space Odyssey kind of ended.
Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher kind of ends in reverse, you know, because he goes back into the womb to kill himself.
But the idea is that at the very end of the story, you're born. I can't think of any good examples, but it amuses me as a notion. F is a funny one because it's like the person writing this list was just done with a specific human being when they wrote this, I'm sure. The main point of the story is for the author to metaphorically tell the reader, ha ha, I tricked you. You thought one thing was going on, but it was really something else. You sure are dumb. It made me think of Kaido again.
Such an excellent premise that was ruined by a stupid ending.
You know what did the exact opposite, though? Future Diary. Because Future Diary did the, this wasn't the one from your timeline, but they didn't do it badly. That was an amazing twist. Because they actually set it up the whole time.
Yeah. Gasai, you know.
The next one. A mysteriously named event's about to happen. Today was the day Jimmy would have to report for the procedure. But the nature of the event isn't revealed at the end of the story, where it turns out it involves death or other unpleasantness. I don't know, the Shibuya incident? The Great Ninja War? I'm trying to think of other ones where they say, like, in advance, this incident happens, and then the incident happens, and then people die. And it's like, what? No way. The graduation exam.
I definitely feel like this is like one of the tropiest of the items on this list. I feel like it's appeared in a lot of different things, but I can't think of any specific examples because none of them were good enough for me to remember what they are.
Awesome. Next one. In the future, an official government permit is required to do some particularly ordinary thing, but that specific thing the permit isn't required for isn't revealed until the end of the story? Pass on that one.
Yeah, I agree.
I got nothing. This one's a fun one, though. Her character speculates, usually jokingly, what if X were true of the universe? At the end, something happens that implies X is true. So, one of the Fast and the Furious movies, the character's like, has it occurred to any of you that we seem to just be invincible? Like, that was straight up a bit that happened in one of those. It was like, that wasn't even a lampshade. That was bad. Just bad. But, like, I'm trying to think of other... Because usually most things I see do that are a joke or a parody, right? Like...
Well, so Film Theory did a episode about how Dominic Toretto's invincibility is directly correlated to Vin Diesel's ego. Because as the movies make more and more money, it's like he has to be doing these more and more ridiculous things in the show, and it's like then he gets positive feedback because the movies make more money, and so then as his ego grows, so does the invincibility and superhuman abilities of the character.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm trying to think of other examples of what if X were true and the plot twist it was, because it's like, what if we're all in a simulation? We are in a simulation. But I can't think of any good examples. I know in The Good Place they had the, wait, what if we're in the bad place? But that was actually a good twist. All right, the last one on this list is characters in the story, usually in the far future in an alien planet, use phrases that sound like English words, like humans, but the reader isn't intended to notice. At the end, the prize twist comes out there's a connection to the 21st century speakers. We were on Earth all along.
Well, okay, so I mean, this is specifically talking about English because this is an English magazine.
Yeah.
But when I was in high school, we had a French textbook for my French class.
So far, this tracks.
And then there's these aliens visiting a planet, and the planet's just covered with trash. And then they're saying like weird things. It's like, oh, that's kind of a weird thing to say. And then it's like, oh yeah, that planet was Earth.
It was Earth all along. Don't date robots.
Yeah, aliens from the future looking at Earth and like, oh yeah, that was the Earth.
Because the classic post-apocalyptic Earth with like subtle hints, but not really. I'm trying to think of any anime or manga where the big twist was it was Earth all along. None are coming to mind, but I feel like it must have happened. Like I feel like I've seen this somewhere. Siren did that.
Siren? I was just gonna say Siren it was like, oh, and this is actually the future.
Yeah, but to be fair, Siren got done dirty in weird ways.
Yeah,
all right, our next topic. Someone calls technical support. Wacky hijinks ensue. Either tech support for a magic item, tech support for advanced technology, or the title of the story is 1-800 something cute goes here.
Well, I mean, this really does feel like a D&D story, which could be pretty excellent. But I don't know that I've ever actually personally seen
Weirdly,
this in media.
Ghostbusters of all things comes to mind.
Oh?
Like, who you gonna call? So you call the Ghostbusters and they come bust the ghost, which is absurd. But I'm also thinking, like, I've seen the skits in, like Austin Powers somewhere, I feel like, where you, like, call for tech support on a bomb. Or, like, Inside Job had that joke a couple times where you're like, hi, what am I looking at? The Rod of Gateth. What do I do? But yeah, it definitely feels like it's a D&D skit.
Yeah, I mean, again, these are short stories, but it definitely feels like a skit or just a joke in a broader story.
Ooh, this next one's pretty good. Scientist uses himself or herself as a test subject. I immediately think Dragon Ball Z Abridged when Dr. Gero is like, well, I took my brain out and put it in this android body. How? How did I do that? Like, I mean, this one's just obvious.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, there's a bunch, like Hollow Man, The Fly, like it's such a story that's been done to death already. Where, like, Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I don't know. Yeah, like there's just so many, just like evil doctors or crazy doctors, not necessarily evil, but crazy doctors that use themselves as test subjects. The Dragon Ball Super, the whatever his the guy from the superheroes movie,
Dr. Gero Jr.
Yeah, Dr. Gero Jr. will say, yeah, because I don't remember his name. But it's like, I mean, they kind of used it at the end for comedic effect, where Bulma hires him to be a cosmetic experimental person, so that she doesn't have to use the Dragon Balls to wish for her.
Dr. Stone did it a lot too, but it felt more justified there. Dr. Stone's problem is it went 3 seasons longer than it should have. So, the next one we have is evil unethical doctor performs medical experiments on unsuspecting patient. That's worse. That's the least interesting of the two.
Yeah, but I mean, have you seen Tusk?
Have you seen Blackjack? Like, yeah, it can be good. Obviously, it can be good. But obviously, it can be very lame and bad and borderline Nazi.
I mean, that's true.
Especially when paired with some of the other troops, like obvious evil character does it medical experiments on unsuspecting patient. Especially the unsuspecting part. That's what makes it ugh. Because consent is king.
Fair enough.
what was that one manga where aliens came down and found an old man, accidentally killed him, and brought him back with superpowers to feel bad for it?
I don't know.
But it was majestic. So I do enjoy the aliens fix you better than you came out. Like, I've seen a couple Star Trek jokes where the aliens are like, I don't know how to put them back together, so I made a better one. Enjoy. Bye. All right. The next one. In the future, criminals are punished much more harshly than they are today. Such as, in the future, the punishment fits the crime. Or B, the author is apparently unaware of American constitutional amendment permitting cruel and unusual punishment, so postulates in the future American punishment will be extra cruel in some unusual way. Yep. I can't think of specific examples, but it's usually like a throwaway villain is guilty for this. Like Impel Down and One Piece. Just One Piece in general is just brutal. They made the Navy assholes. I mean, I love perfectly ironic punishments, but that's just not how life works.
Well, I mean, I feel like there's a couple episodes of Black Mirror that are kind of in this vein.
Black Mirror is concerning because of how plausible it is. But, like, I don't mind it as a bit, but if that's your entire story of perfect punishments for people, then you just have a Saw movie, and don't write me a Saw movie. Because that's what they're going for. The idea behind a Saw movie is like, I made this ironic. It's like, no, you didn't. You're just a dick. All right, number 14, I agree, should never be done. White protagonist is given wise and mythical advice by wholly simple native folk.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, it's just the oversimplification of both cultures and aspects of how life runs in general. It's like, it's really hard to do justice to anyone in that kind of story.
Yeah, it's bad. Just don't do it. That's it. That's the full story. Just don't have wise mythical advice happen from an old man of a culture you're not a member of is usually a bad tactic. Like, make them a cat at least. Like, so Korn would be so much more sus if it was Upa he met on the top of the protagonist. The top of the tower.
Yeah. Dragon Ball.
15 to call us out. Story is based in whole or part of a D&D campaign. Or D&D world. So first off, ouch, called out. But B, it's like you have your party of characters, a fighter, a magic user, a thief. Like, yeah, you're making fun of D&D. Other than the questionable content, I enjoyed a lot of Goblin Slayer, which is straight this. But they mention different flavors, like real humans find themselves in a D&D world. Like, they're just describing the Ikusai genre, and you're right, List, I hate it. Thank you. At least be clever like Inuyasha and make it an interesting setting. They get Ikusai too, to have a warrior, a monk, a rogue, and a demon slayer. Like, just remix it.
Yeah, being shoved into a role-playing world, there's just so many. I mean, the more common is the virtual reality version of this, but yeah, it's
or hip. No, the most common one now is hit by a truck, wake up in D&D.
Ah, well, yeah, that's true too.
And then magically have a scan ability. Ooh, I hate that. Hate that hyper-specific trope so much. It's like, not only are you playing in a fantasy world, you're metagaming? I have to read a story about a metagamer? Ugh, boo. Boo all of this. Exile to space. However, if you actually bother to make your own fantasy world instead of just borrowing one, you can have a good story. Like, Record of the Lotus War was just a D&D campaign, but they tried really hard, and you can usually fix this problem. Because the Band of Four is very cliche. Like, your story having a fighter, a magic user, a thief. It's just common writing. And it's not a bad thing when it's done well. It's actually kind of hard to not do it that way and still have an interesting cast of characters.
Right.
But with that...
I mean, I guess that's fair. Yeah.
Like, let's take Hunter x Hunter, for example. Hunter x Hunter was amazing.
It was amazing.
It did do most of these things. Like, if Hunter x Hunter was a D&D campaign, it could have been. But it was, like, clever and charming enough to get away with it. Alright, let's try and blitz through the rest, because we're running low on time here. 16.
I don't think you're going to be able to blitz through the rest.
Fine, I'm just going to go
51.
to the last one then, jerk. Alright, number 51. Humanity's problems, such as war, mental health issues, disease, or bad political leaders, turn out to be secretly caused by aliens, demons, or other non-human creatures.
Wonder Woman.
Oh, Wonder Woman. It was so deep until they did the thing they said they weren't gonna do in the movie. And, like, there's a lot on this list, like baby falling, title is entirely a string of digits. But oh man, humanity's problems being a thing that you can be killed, I hate. Like, Soul Eater had them literally punch fear in the face.
I really do like the way that the Chainsaw Man does it, where it's like you can kill the demon of war or like make people forget about war, but eventually, when people remember war, its power will come back.
Chainsaw Man doesn't deserve to be good, but it is. And I keep saying that because I keep reading it. It keeps being good. And I'm like, how? Flails inanely at it. But, like, a lot of the worst endings end up being this kind of logic. Like, in Naruto, it was all the fault of a space alien. It really was.
Which stood up for bad Boruto.
Because maybe that's what ruined Naruto, actually, is humanity's problems weren't the different ninja clans fighting against each other, it's that this one evil alien wanted to make a tree and eat everybody, and as a result of that, every bad thing that ever happened was their fault. So let's even blame butterflies and the Soul Reaper's trying to kill Rukia, the Hollows being berserk. Yeah, no, that was all part of Aizen's plan. And the Soul King is the real problem. But, like, Bleach wasn't as bad for it, but I've definitely seen this one come along. A lot. Weirdly, Dragon Ball never pulled this card. Dragon Ball never just pinned war on Piccolo. Could have.
Definitely could have.
But whenever there's a villain, that you defeat that one dude and somehow that fixes the world. I know it's kind of funny, like the main villain of Inuyasha was the magic jewel itself was evil and corrupting wishes. But when they smashed the jewel, it didn't magically make that era better, it just got rid of the magic jewel. I really thought Inuyasha was going to end with the magic jewel getting rid of all the demons, so that way the timeline lined up correctly. And then they didn't do that, and I was happy. Sailor Moon's first season ended with you killed the villain, and it literally just made all the bad things stop. Fairy
Good old
Tail
Sailor Moon
also kind of had that problem where they just, like, defeated the main villains. It's like, yeah, no, everyone's happy again, because really it's just this one asshole's suicide quest was causing most of the problems. And I'm like, was it? Really? Weren't you at war with another country? Weren't they, like, complicit in No? Okay.
No, it's just the one guy's suicide wish.
And then the last one they have is, we have... Aliens are far future post-humans, think, talk, and behave just like upper-middle-class Americans. That's the easy way to do it, though. You write what you know, right? But with that, I think that'll cover our list for now. We made it a decent chunk of the way in.
About 40%.
With that, we have chat being I Am Groot, talking about Guts from Berserk, talking about Christmas movies are vast. And with that, we shall move into our random question.
Ooh, what kind of random questions shall we have today?
Let's see what we got here. Trying to find them,
Drum
'cause
roll.
I'm bad at hunting. I can stand to be better at this.
I'm sorry, that was a terrible drum roll.
I mean, yes, it does kind of just sound like you're going...
That was what I was doing.
So, first one comes in from anonymous viewer. What is the craziest fashion trend you ever rocked?
The craziest fashion trend I ever rocked?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not that crazy. When I was younger, I had a girl. There was a girl I liked. I was in like grade 1. No, I wasn't. And she got a mushroom cut. And so then I approached my dad and I was like, hey, I don't want a mushroom cut. And my dad wouldn't let me get a mushroom cut because then my older brother would want one. And he has these weird bald spots on the back of his head, and he didn't want my brother to get made fun of.
Not where I thought that story was going. I thought he was just being a hero and not letting you do this to yourself.
But as for fashion trends that I actually have rocked, for a long time I did really like bell bottoms. But that's not really that crazy.
Very fair. So we both know what mine is. Remember when you met me and I had a long ponytail, auto tint glasses, a leather jacket, and looked suspiciously like John Lennon?
Suspiciously.
I mean, that's pretty crazy, right? Like, I never went full weeb. Like, I never, outside of Halloween and conventions, just walked around Akatsuki style. But I will say, like, the button-up shirt being worn as an overshirt with the tinted glasses and the long ponytail, that was a choice. That was me wanting to look like Zero from Mega Man X and not quite having the self-confidence to rock it. I could probably get away with it now. I feel like if I try it again, I could probably pull it off. I think I just didn't have the beard grown in.
You have that green Riddler suit.
I mean, yeah, I can't just show up to the dressed up as the Riddler and get away with it now. It's kind of crazy what I can get away with unearned self-confidence. And we have one last random question before we wrap up. What is the weirdest thing you have eaten for breakfast that is not a breakfast food?
Weirdest thing I've eaten for breakfast that is not a breakfast food. Well, I don't know. I'm not actually all that adventurous with my food choices. As people may have guessed, I mean, like, Wing Wednesdays, you got to have wings. So it's Wing Wednesday. I mean, like, I guess I have. Maybe if you're talking about suspicious foods.
No, I'm going to answer for both of us. Because we both did the same thing. It has to be the 8-liter bucket of lasagna sauce. That we both put in a bowl and ate as breakfast.
Well, sloppy joes are great.
Our breakfast was I ruined that bucket of lasagna sauce, so we had to eat it, and we just ate lasagna sauce for the power of breakfast. I think that's probably as good as it gets.
Well, I mean, I was going to say just like I was just going to say a slice of pizza that's been sitting on the counter overnight.
I feel like that's more normal than just like the fact we had the bucket of lasagna sauce alone makes it fun.
That's true.
It's just not something people
you're making me hungry,
right? So with that, I think it's time for dinner. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Also, I have a book. Go buy it. That'd be great. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks for buying his book. Thanks.
Really appreciate it. And if you didn't buy my book, it was fun hanging out with you this evening. Thanks for tuning in live. Thanks for downloading the podcast. I don't know, drink some water and get some sunlight like a plant.
Yeah, well, and thanks for making us a part of your Christmas traditions.
Which will happen in the future because we're time traveling.
Bye.
Bye. You know what's great? Buckets of lasagna sauce. I could go.
I really like that. I appreciate that you went for my joke about predicting what you're gonna do on New Year's Eve.
Oh, absolutely. Also unrelated, one of my Christmas presents I got was a frozen lasagna that someone homemade.
Oh, that's very thoughtful. Right?